If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
What it costs. I want to know what the truth is. And I hope that people, my son, anybody, if my name comes up, whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you can respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
So is that your picture of the eclipse?
Yep.
Opa, what did you think? I mean, how many eclipses have you seen?
A couple.
Wow. Yeah, we ended up going to near about 30 minutes east of Carbondale. So we went to the X marks the spot.
Are we still rolling, Opa?
Yeah.
Oh, Jake, I wanted to tell you about this. I was inducted into the Mascot Hall of Fame. I got a call from the commissioner of the Mascot Hall of Fame. Check this out. That's me,
what? Dude, congratulations. That's such a cool thing. Man.
That's actually me because of the pendant on the shirt. I made that. And he's brushed.
Nice.
And well maintained.
Oh my gosh, that is sweet.
I thought it was pretty funny.
This is from a friend of mine. He was a colleague of mine, and he lives sort of out in the unpopulated area. So he was.
Oh, that was a great shot. My goodness.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, we were hoping we'd see something cool. We did see the two wandering planets up there appear when the totality happened.
Yeah, we had lots of clouds.
Wow, but you can still see it even though it's overcast. That's really cool.
Well, there was a little break during the totality. That's why I got that other shot. You
can even see it in the reflection of the lens.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Here's a quick promo.
Hey, Skiba News Nation family. Today we have a very special guest, a great friend of the show, world-renowned researcher, filmmaker, and overall legend, Mr. L.A. Marzulli. Welcome to Skiba News Nation.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. I don't know about the overall legend, but thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. I think you're a legend. But last time we talked about your new film, Roswell Revisited, Exoneration, and just overall Roswell, which was fascinating. And I'd like to start by asking you some questions that some viewers submitted. Is that okay?
Sure. Absolutely. Let's go for it.
Awesome. So one of our viewers asked me the other day if I knew anything about giants in Antarctica, and I thought you would be the perfect person to ask about that because I didn't really know much about what they were talking about, but I was hoping you could clarify.
You know, anybody can write anything. I mean, I could sit down in an afternoon and write Admiral Byrd's diary, right? I mean, I could do that. So that's never been vetted. I actually hired a private detective to try to find out if there were any relatives from Admiral Byrd that we could talk to about it. Really cold trail, really cold trail. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere, but the private detective I hired just said, this is a really cold trail. You sure you want to blow a couple $1,000s to try to find if there's someone living? So I let it go. What we do know about Antarctica is this, and this is a fact. The Nazis were obsessed with it. They had a base there called New Schwabenland. That's an absolute fact. You can go there. You can go to that ancient base, and there's still stuff apparently littered around the ground. You're allowed in the Antarctica in the summertime, and people go there all the time. So then you get to the idea that, well, certain parts of Antarctica are forbidden. There's no fly zones. This is where the hollow earth is and all this stuff. And I get that. That's great reading. I mean, it's like, but it's sci-fi. You see, in order to go with something, you've got to be able to vet it. It's like the first rule of journalism. If you can't vet it, you can't go with it. Or if you go with it, you have to say, guys, this is really far out. We can't vet this. We have no idea who's starting this stuff. So there's a lot of so-called researchers and authors who peddle this kind of what I would call real conspiracy theory. There is no source material. They're just quoting what other people have stated, either on the net or in ancient books, or a friend of somebody said something. Let me just clarify something to you. And I learned this years ago. This has to go back well over 30 years when I was really just starting out. What I mean by that, I've always been involved in the arcane. Before I became a Christian, I was immersed in the New Age. I was immersed in occult philosophy. I had a guru, my third eye was open. I mean, I was totally into that paradigm. That was the paradigm I embraced. I believed in reincarnation. I mean, the whole deal. The whole deal. Spoon-fed from 13 to 30. Then I became a born-again, spirit-filled Christian. So, and that changed the paradigm. That literally changed everything. So years ago, I get this, I want to say it was an email. So it's not before, the internet, but it's right around that time. Or maybe it wasn't. I'm kind of fuzzy on this. But in fact, you know what? It wasn't. It was before the internet really took off. So this is years ago. I received a letter or a phone call from somebody stating, and this is the story that they told. So there's a motorist driving in his car, and there's a guy hitchhiking on the side of the road. So the motorist figures, what the heck? I'll pick this guy up. So he picks him up, and the guy is, he's got a little knapsack or a water bottle and some other stuff, and they begin a conversation. And the passenger, the hitchhiker, basically looks at the guy and goes, I want you to know that Jesus is coming soon.
Wow.
And then he just disappears. Okay. So I get on the phone and I call the person. Here's the whole point of the story. I call the person on the phone. Where did you get that story from? Well, I got it from my friend's cousin. Can you give me his number? Yeah, hold on. So now I'm on the phone a day later with the friend's cousin. This is a great story. Where did you hear it from? Are you the source material? No, I'm not. My brother's friend heard this and told my brother, and my brother told me. Okay, well, can I get your brother's phone? And so I'm running. This is all your research, right? I'm spending the time. I'm on the phone calling these guys, and I finally get his brother's friend on the phone. Oh, no. I didn't. My girlfriend's friend told me about this. Well, can I have her number? This goes on for like 2 weeks, and I'm running with this thing. Finally, I hit the end where I get on with a pastor, and the pastor basically says, well, we're not allowed to give out that information. Click. And that was the end of it. The whole point is it was a whisper down the lane deal. It was like, well, this person told this person, and that person told the other person, and this person told the other person over here, and around and around and around, and it goes, and you never get to the source. Without the source, you can't do anything. Would I like to mount an expedition in the summertime to Antarctica? You bet your booties I would. Absolutely. Something went on there. And also, here's a fact. We know at the end of World War II, U-boats went missing. That's a historical fact. So I'm not making this up. We know from multiple sources that Nazi U-boats were unaccounted for and went missing. There's also a show called Hunting Hitler
Love that
on
show.
the History Channel, which was really done really, really well. Do I believe Hitler escaped? You bet your bottom dollar I do. I never believed in the suicide deal and the bunker and the bodies. I never, not for one instant, even as a kid, when you heard about this at like 15 or 16, I'm not buying that. It's like, this is like the Lee Harvey Oswald of conspiracy.
It's a little too convenient, right? It's too convenient.
I'm sorry, what?
It's a little too
way
convenient.
Too convenient.
Yeah.
So, he has an expert pilot. He hops in that plane. He flies to Spain. From Spain, he takes the U-boat, winds up in Argentina, and the rest is history. There's a whole Nazi base down there. And the CIA knows about this, and they don't do squat. You have to ask yourself, why not? So it's, and if I say something like this immediately, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Wait a minute. Let's drop the name calling and the ad hominem attacks. Why don't you give me an intellectual response on what I just stated? Did Hitler, in fact, escape? And people that spent a lot of money on the History Channel for that show, Hunting Hitler, believed, as I do, that he actually did escape. So we know U-boats are missing, circling back to Antarctica. U-boats are missing. High Nazi officials are missing. I mean, these people just vanish. Martin Bormann just vanishes into history. I mean, Mengele survived until a very ripe old age, and then he just died. They knew where he was. They could have picked him up. Eichmann, not so lucky. They got him. The Israelis went over and took him. So it makes you wonder, well, why did they know about Eichmann but not about Mengele? And Mengele, for those of you who don't know, is called the Angel of Death at Auschwitz. He's the guy that stood when the trains came up and pointed to the right or to the left. If you went to the one side, you went directly to the gas chambers. If you were a man that looked healthy, people have no idea, of what most people today, a lot, especially your generation and younger. And please don't take offense at that. I'm a student of the Holocaust. I've got pictures that this woman's grandfather took when they liberated one of the camps. I have the original pictures of those, which even as I'm talking about it makes me tingle all over. They are absolutely chilling, just chilling. So the Holocaust is a real deal. But circling back again, Mengele lives to a ripe old age. Eichmann, he's caught and that's it. And thank God he was caught. How many other Nazis? Who knows? And, it's so Antarctica, you got to put that on the back burner. You got to put it on the back burner because there's no source material. And until we know something really hard, hard in fact, and we can prove it, can't go there. Now, that was a long answer to that question, but I think it was a good one. So,
yeah, there's a lot of good
I think
insight.
It's very refreshing how you break down the way for intellectual honesty to, go about compiling information on a variety of stories, because a lot of people aren't aware on what a real journalist has to do in order to convey reality to the masses. I mean, there's always the saying, like, there's your opinion, there's my opinion, and there's the way it actually happened, right? And then, unfortunately, we have this telephone game that happens in a lot of conspiratorial realms because there's that counter narrative going out and there's that sequestering of information that you have to navigate. And so I think it's so important for people to, come at topics that are conspiratorial in nature with that intellectual honesty that you described. It's very, very important.
I agree.
So I had another question for you. So some people are very skeptical of abductions, which, I think that they happen. I think there's a lot of credibility to some of them. And I was watching something on this, probably one of the most famous abduction tales of all time, and it was Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. And I was watching this, it was on Netflix, and it was a really good, well-produced thing. And I don't know if you know anything more about that, but I thought it was the most fascinating thing I've ever heard.
Calvin Parker was at a UFO conference, and I was scheduled to interview him, and he bailed on me. So I never got to sit down. Oh, yeah. I never got to sit down and really pick his brain the way I wanted to. I believe his story. I listened to his presentation, Pascagoula. It is absolutely a classic abduction. You see, the problem is, Jeremiah and Jake, is that a lot of people don't believe in the physicality of all this. And there are people out there, well-meaning people, they're not here to defend themselves, so we won't disparage them by calling them out by name. But there are people that are trying to tell us that there's no physicality to this whole phenomena, that it's all demonic delusion. Let me just ask you this. How do you square that with David Grush, the whistleblower, in front of Congress, okay, who is under oath, and when asked by Representative Nancy Mace, did we recover crashed craft? Yes, our government has in its possession crashed craft. Then Representative Nancy Mace goes, were there bodies in these crashed craft? And David Grush looks right up at the camera and says, yes, there were bodies that are recovered. Then she asked a follow-up, were these bodies human or non-human? Once again, Grush looks right up and says, these were non-human biologics. Now, if it's all demonic delusion, what is that doing there? See, in my research, we have 30 films now. 28 of them are available. 2 will be available at the last 2, making it 30 films in our stable. Will be available by the end of the month. There will be 10 films on the whole UFO phenomena. Before that, my late business partner Richard Shaw and I, and we traveled in Dallas with your dad and your mom, Jeremiah, and that's where your mother's going, and right there's the book depository, and there's the grassy knoll, and there's the X on the I'm just going like, oh my gosh. I mean, I had never been there, never been to the kill site before, and your dad's driving, I'm in the front seat, Richard and your mom are in the back, and Richard's filming the whole thing. It's just, of course he is, and I'm flipping out, but I digress as usual. So where was I? So what were we just talking about? How did I get into the JFK assassination? Oh my gosh.
We were talking about,
so I got to circle back.
Calvin Parker.
What was that?
Calvin Parker?
Yeah. So there's a physicality to the whole UFO phenomena. And those who are saying that there is none don't realize that, and again, our films, we took out an implant. There was no entrance wound where the implant was below the leg. There's a whole protocol that the late Dr. Elijah Laird put in place. We are the only Christian team ever to do that. It's in our Best of Watchers series. It's right there. We were the ones that when the entity, the gray, came into the room and through the window and touched the window like this, Dr. Roger Laird took out the drywall panel. It fluoresced. We were the ones who took scrapings from that and went into a scanning electron microscope, and it's on the film. I go, let me ask you something. Is this human or non-human? And the operator looks at me and goes, whatever this is, it's not human. It's not human. So we have implants. We have 4-finger deals. We've got the metal from Roswell that we recovered. I've interviewed, many abductees. That's the 4th film in our whole, UFO film deal here. I mean, this is like real investigative journalism. It's not some guy going, well, there's no physicality because I say there isn't. Well, that's a straw man argument. Show me. And I can show you metal samples from the debris field, which are an aluminum alloy, 7000 series that were not invented until 1953. And those 2 pieces of metal that we took from a debris field show high stress, high temperature, and they're folded in on itself. What can you show me that there isn't a physicality? And then what it does is it disparages authors like Karen Wilkinson, like Emil Jurek and others. We published her book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. So when these people try to tell us that it's all in your head, it's all demonic delusion, no. First of all, Scripture tells us that the seed war, Genesis 3:15, all about the seed. And you guys know this. This is Rob's legacy. It's all about the seed, Genesis 3:15. This is my wheelhouse. I've been banging this drum for 30 years, for crying out loud. It's all about the seed. Genesis 3:15, the seed of a serpent at war with the seed of the woman. When we get to Daniel chapter 2, verse 43, their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Seal up the words of his book, Daniel, until the time of the end. Men will run to and fro over the face of the earth, knowledge will increase. Guess what? This is the time of the end. We're in it. That scripture, which has been hidden for thousands of years, is now illuminated for people like us. We can look at that and know that the seed is mingling. And to say that it's not show me that it's not. You can't. People have met hybrids. We have interviewed people that have met hybrid people, and they are scary. They are in a fixed state. Jesus warns us it'll be like the days of Noah. These are modern day Nephilim walking amongst us. So, these well-meaning people can go on and on and on about there's no physicality. In my opinion, they obfuscate the water. They muddy things up, especially with the body of Christ. They negate all of Scripture, which points to their physicality, like the Kandahar giant, for instance. Do you think we're just making this stuff up? We're not. Ref.
With you bringing up Nazi Germany and their interest in Antarctica, our audience is probably very familiar with a lot of the legends around Nazi experiments and such, and many are familiar with Project Paperclip, where some of the top-end Nazi scientists, who many of which were involved in some of the dark occultic seances and such. Rebuke first, ask questions later.
We sold out of the mugs in one day, so we've ordered
That's
more.
Great. So what I was getting at is I was wondering if there's ever a preponderance of evidence for another kind of answer to the question of the UFO phenomenon, which is we know that the Nazis were into conducting experiments on humans. We know that there's a genetic manipulation regarding trying to create these black-eyed children or children with hyper-intelligence. Is there any preponderance of evidence that some of the bodies found in some of these crashes were simply children or orphans that were being used to fly experimental craft? And they could have, in fact, even been genetically altered or enhanced children. But, we see, a correlation between hyper-intelligent children and the occult. And also they're small enough to fit into a UFO, flying craft. So is there any preponderance of evidence to support that position?
Again, there's another well-meaning researcher that insisted that what crashed in Roswell was a weather balloon. Weather balloons don't fly in at 400 miles per hour. Let me just read this, and I'll get into that. Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wilmot. This is, by the way, from July 8th, 1947, and this is the paper right here. RAF captures flying saucer, and Will DeMont says that Mr. and Mrs. DeMont were sitting on their porch at 105 South Penn Wednesday night about 10 o'clock just before 10 o'clock. A large glowing object zoomed out of the sky from the southeast, going in a northwesterly direction at a high rate of speed. Wilmot called Mrs. Wilmot's attention to it. Both ran down into the yard to watch. It was in sight for less than a minute, perhaps 40 or 50 seconds. Wilmot said that it appeared to be high. Let me do that again. Wilmot said that it appeared to him to be about 1,500 feet high and going fast. He estimated between 400 or 500 miles per hour. In appearance, it looked oval in shape, like two inverted saucers. Weather balloons don't look like that. So, we've got Will DeMont, eyewitness, 500 miles per hour, streaking in, zooming in. It's not a weather balloon, okay? Number one. Number two, the bodies from the crash. One of them was still alive. How do we know that? Because Colonel Hill, who was OSS, did a deathbed confession with two people that came in on our films. It's Jim and Carolyn Rankin. And they did end-of-life procedures with him. Hill died at 90 years old. He was flown to Roswell within 48 hours. Again, he was an interrogator for the OSS. He tried to communicate with the one that was still alive and was unable to do so. That's number one. Number two, we've got the deathbed affidavit. Oh, they're the balloons. Thank you very much. Number two, we've got the deathbed affidavit from Walter G. Hout, who basically stated that he was brought into Hangar 84. In our Roswell film, we are in Hangar 84. We were there. It's exactly the way it was, except for upkeep and maintenance in 1947. We're in Hangar 84. Who gets to do that? That's favor from the Lord, and that's how we got in. But I digress. So he walked in. There was the craft that was in Hangar 84. There were bodies that were recovered from the craft, large heads, black eyes, the whole deal. This is an affidavit from him. He also handled the wreckage with General Ramey and others. You see, this is hardcore. We've got witnesses. We've got witnesses. This is real investigative journalism. I'm out of a library, and it's important. I spend a lot of time in the library. I'm not knocking researchers who are in the library. The library is important. That gives us the backstory. But then you got to go to Roswell, and you got to go to the debris field, and you got to go to Hangar 84. There was another witness that came on the record after the film was done, and he stated that his grandmother worked at Roswell for most of her life. And he's driving her around. This is a month before she passes. And they're going by Hangar 84, and he goes, "Grandma, is that where they kept the bodies?" He's joking. Well, Grandma's not joking. She looks at him and says, "Yes, that's where the wreckage was kept and the bodies. We didn't see them. We were not permitted to go in there." The Greys, and you talked about the black-eyed kids. Here's something that came through at the last conference I was at. The window to the soul is through our eyes. The windows to the soul are through the eyes. They can't get the eyes right in the hybrids because they have no soul. The hybrids have no soul. They are in a fixed state. We know that. We've known that for years. They cannot get salvation. They are part fallen angel and part human, but they have no soul. That's why the black-eyed kids, that's why the hybrids with the dark glasses over their eyes, and that's why the eyes shapeshift when you look at them, because they are soulless. Now that's conjecture. As I say often, when was the last time any of us sat down with somebody from Hell's Kitchen and did an interview? We never will. I don't want to. But it's based on decades and decades and decades of research. And then all of a sudden, the pieces like dominoes just go click, 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 click. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe this is why. I've known for a long time that they have no soul. But now I understand that when I told this to Karen Wilkinson in an interview on my show, she flipped out. She totally flipped out. She went, "LA, I've never heard that before. That explains everything." And she was abducted since she was like 5 or 6 years old. So the bodies that were recovered, they were not children genetically engineered. That's just nonsense. They were, in fact, the Greys. The Greys are biological constructs to house the demons. Demons are the spirits, the earthbound spirits of the Nephilim. So let's walk through it. Genesis 3:15, your seed, your offspring, will be at war with the offspring of the woman. 3 chapters later, Genesis 6, the whole seed war explodes. The Nephilim are on the earth in those days. The Nephilim are the progeny, the offspring of fallen angels and human women, creating a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. The second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth incursion into modernity, their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Daniel chapter 2:43. Jim Williamson did a deep dive on that. That word cleave goes back into the marriage contract way back in Genesis. A man will leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. There's no cleaving. And that's exactly what we see in modernity with the so-called, alien abduction and implants and the hybridization program which is going on. So the Greys are expendable because they are nothing more than biological suits. They're avatars. And you say, well, why would the enemy do this? How can Satan create all this stuff? Read the book of Enoch. When the angels come down, they're giving mankind technology. Oh, we can't read the book of Enoch because it's not in our Bibles. Well, if Jude quotes it, and Jude is one of the original guys, right? The brother of the Lord, that means a lot to me. So, theologians can yell and scream and jump up and down and, call it and, engage in ad hominem attacks against me. Why don't we just, if you were going to keep one book away from the people, you keep the book of Enoch away from the people, because it tells you exactly what's going on with the seed war, and in the Ethiopian Bible, that's the book of Enoch goes before the Genesis account in the Ethiopian Bible today in modernity. So, what is, and which Bible do you want to read? the Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, the NIV, the King James, the New King James. Want me to continue? There's about 50 of them you can read, and they differ greatly. So people go, my gosh, Ole, which one do you read? I read them all. And I look at all the commentaries. I just get the alphabet soup and just start sucking it all down. If I'm really doing a deep dive, I will read every translation I can get on either a paragraph or a sentence or whatever. And that's why when I present and I talk about Genesis 3:15, I show 5 or 6 different translations. My favorite one, believe it or not, is the Message. I am declaring war between your offspring and the woman's offspring. I mean, there it is. I'm declaring war. Jesus, the pre-incarnate Christ, is in the garden declaring war. I mean, just like, wow, there it is right there. It spells it all out. But of course, modern day seminaries don't teach that. There is no seed war. So the pastors who graduate, they come in and they have no idea what's going on. And they can't, and of course, they don't teach their parishioners what's going on.
Could you speak to that a little bit more in depth with what is taught in the seminary system as in regards to the Sethite theory and why that is such a doctrine pushed so heavily in our modern age on the Christian community at large? Why is it so important to hide that the Bible is a book of angels and fantastic things that actually happened?
Because we live in the era of Augustine, where everything was supernatural and allegorized. And so there is no physicality to the angels. Well, it says in the Bible, LA, that, angels will be like the angels in heaven, neither marrying nor giving in marriage. So, and that's what we hear. And that's the excuse. Well, that doesn't say that they can't procreate. And they do procreate. And they come down and they do the unthinkable. Because without that, the God of the Bible is some genocidal, maniacal, capricious whack job. I don't want anything to do with him because he's destroying everybody and killing everybody. And then, Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, it's like, whoa, jump back and scratch it. I mean, who is this guy, right? Then we finally get to the conquest of Canaan and see if we know about the Genesis 3:15 seed war, what happens in the chosen land with the chosen children of Israel in the promised land is the culmination of the seed war. On the field of battle in the promised land, you have the seed of the dragon, the Rephaim, the Anakim, the Nephilim, the Zamzumim, the Emims, all names for Nephilim tribes. And then you got the seed of the woman. You got the 12 tribes of Israel right there. Folks, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not. It's right there in our Bibles. But if you don't know Genesis 3:15, I'll say that again, if we don't know Genesis 3:15, when we arrive at the gates of the promised land and we hear that genocidal mandate, kill them all, men, women, children, animals, burn everything. Well, that's genocide. But the moment we figure soulless entities, Nephilim tribes, genetic aberrations who were never supposed to be here, everything changes. Genesis 3:15, in my opinion, is the gateway to this, is the gateway to the guidebook of the supernatural. If you don't understand Genesis 3:15, with all due respect, you don't understand anything. And so the Sethite theory, which in my opinion completely tortures the text, says that the godly line of Seth intermarried with the hoochie mamas of Cain. But hoochie mama is not in our Bible, and they're just pulling straws out. But if you're taught this in seminary and you get an A in the class, then you go out and you repeat what you were taught, because that's just the way things work. Unless I am convinced, and I'm not against education at all. I have an honorary doctorate from my mentor. I have a gold medallion from Chuck Missler, which is like a second honorary doctorate. Okay, I am a voracious reader. I've always got 2 or 3 books, maybe not 2 or 3, but at least one going. Sometimes 2 or 3. I don't want to boast here and sound like you're an intellectual snob, LA. But I'm always reading, always researching. Right now I'm reading a book on America's Stonehenge, and it's a deep dive. But I digress as usual. I think the Lord kept me out of seminary. I wanted to go. I think he deliberately kept me out. Because when you go, and this is the problem with all this stuff, When a person goes to a college or a seminary or whatever it is, you become indoctrinated. You're going to believe what your professors tell you to believe. My daughter, whom I love dearly, went to college, okay? And she came back scoffing at me for believing or not believing in the evolutionary paradigm. And I said, well, evolution is a theory. It's never been proven. And now that we know about the double helix of life, the deoxyribonucleic acid, the spiral of life, which is what our name of our company is, which points to creation from a holy God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God from the beginning. He was with God. All things were created by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Now, that's a statement. Well, that's just in the Bible. We just can't possibly follow that. Oh, yes, we can. That is the truth. That is the truth. And we also know from 2 Thessalonians, because they did not believe the truth, God sends them strong delusion. And that delusion ties back into the whole UFO phenomena. When they come, our space brothers, who are not our space brothers, will tell us that they created all life here. They seeded all life here. They genetically manipulated early man. They started the world's civilizations, the world's religions. Now at this critical juncture, they are here to usher mankind into a time of global prosperity. And on and on and on it goes. So that's the great lie. God allows the strong delusion. God sends them strong delusion because they do not believe the truth. What is the truth? That Jesus spoke everything into existence. He holds all things together. That's what Jesus does. He's holding me together right now. Go figure. He's holding you two guys together. And, all he has to do is stop holding, and we'd all just bleed out in 30 seconds. That would be the end of it. So the Sethite theory is what's promulgated in the universities. And if you believe, but nowhere does it say, the godly line of Seth or the hoochie mamas of Cain. It doesn't say that. And this is why it's so controversial. Thank God for my mentor, Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, and my second mentor, Gary Stearman at Prophecy Watchers. I call him lovingly elder brother. Gary was the one who illuminated Genesis 3:15, and he blew us all away at the Nephilim Mountains Conference in Ohio years and years ago. I mean, we all sat there on the edge of our chairs. You could hear a pin drop. We had never heard Genesis 3:15 illuminated. When was the last time either of you guys in your church ever heard the pastor talk about Genesis 3:15? You never hear it. It is the gateway to the Bible. If we come to a correct exegesis, correct interpretation of Genesis 3:15, the entire Bible just opens itself up. If we don't, good luck.
Good point. So what do you think about the eclipse? I know Jake had a really good question about it that he wanted to bring up. I got to see it. It's pretty cool. It was only 2 minutes, but it's pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, this is what drives me nuts about the Christian community. It really does. It's, all these yahoos, this is a sign, Jesus is coming back. Oh my God. It's all this stuff. Excuse me. We've already been through this in 2017. We're really not going to learn anything by this. Keep an eye on it. Let's look. There's some weird stuff going on. CERN, NASA's firing 3 rockets. See, but I did a 2-minute deal on CERN. We've had like 2.1 million downloads on TikTok from that. And we got fact checked by USA Today. So who's fact checking the fact checkers? Why not reach out to me and let's talk about the Temple of Apollo, which was actually, CERN was absolutely stopped. They stopped construction until they could bring the archaeologists in. So, what are we really looking at here? Why do they have the statue of Shiva, the destroyer? What's that doing there? Why is it that they have this guy in a goat skin with the horns and stuff doing some sort of occult ritual? I mean, would any of us do anything like that? No, I don't think so. Do you want a statue of Shiva in your bedroom or in your living room? How about your driveway? We'll just bring the statue of Shiva in here because, what the heck? And then we're going to do a little ritual here. We're only joking, though. We're really only joking. We really don't mean anything by this. Really? Would we do anything like this? But the moment you say that, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. Well, enough with the ad hominem attacks. Let's talk about the issues. Why is the statue of Shiva doing there? And when I asked the docent at CERN, he had no answer. Why is it that they did a semi-occult ceremony in dedication of CERN? Why is that? Was there really the Temple of Apollo? and the bottomless pit, the gates to hell that were allegedly, CERN is built either near or on that site. What's going on with that? You see, but they always point the finger. So what I've been saying about this ever since this stuff started, the place to watch is Israel, is the Middle East. If you believe, if you are a cessationist, if you believe in replacement theology, then you'll never figure out the Bible, in my opinion, because the 7-year tribulation does not deal with the church. It's called the time of Jacob's trouble. It deals with the nation of Israel, the 7 years. That's what it deals with. And everything, all hell is breaking loose over there. They will go into Rafah. There is a date that's set. Iran will attack. So are we looking at Ezekiel 38? Very possible. That prophecy has never been fulfilled. Psalm 83, Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus. Is that what we're looking at? And Israel's already threatened to destroy Damascus, and they can certainly do it. And Iran is saber rattling. And the Russians are already in the Golan Heights. They're already in Syria. So they're already there. The wild card is Erdogan in Turkey. And there's a picture I show in my Days of Chaos lecture. For the first time ever in the history of the world that I'm aware of, you've got Erdogan from Turkey, the president of Turkey. You've got Putin from Russia, and you've got President Raisi from Iran standing on the stage together. Why is this important? Because those are the 3 leading nations in the Ezekiel 38 war. Why is it even more mind-blowing? Because Raisi is Shia Muslim and from Iran, and Erdogan is Sunni Muslim, the majority, and they hate each other. They've been at loggerheads for 1,300 years. Make no mistake about that. And there they are on the same stage. There's an ancient saying in the Middle East, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If Turkey gets involved, Turkey has a real air force and a real standing military. They're not Hamas. They're not a proxy army like Hezbollah. And the Ezekiel 38 war states that Russia and Turkey and Iran attack a land of unwalled villages. Now, I have gone around and around and around with people who insist that Israel is not a land of unwalled villages. I've been to Israel. It is a land of unwalled villages. Is there a wall in Jerusalem to keep out the terrorists? Absolutely. But that's a wall. You go out to, any other city. Tel Aviv is not surrounded by a wall, and that was the capital. Most of Jerusalem is not surrounded by a wall. All the cities that we went to, like are in and around Tel Gezer, up in the north, up in the Golan, Capernaum, they're all cities without bars or gates, and they're living peacefully in a false peace. I get that. It's a false peace. Remember, everybody was land for peace with Hamas. We gave Hamas Gaza, and as the Israelis are leaving, they're firing their rockets. Right? I mean, nothing changes. And we see the rise of anti-Semitism on a global level. Meanwhile, everybody forgets October 7th. It's 186 days ago, I believe, or 187 days ago, when 1,200 Israelis were massacred, and some in the most heinous of ways. Babies were decapitated in front of their parents. Are you kidding me? Seriously? This is insanity. And something else to think about. Gaza, the Gaza Strip, was the only Nephilim stronghold in the Levant, in the Promised Land, that was never conquered by the Israelis. Never conquered. Isn't that interesting?
That is very
interesting. And I want to make something really clear. I'm not calling Hamas Nephilim. It's not what I'm saying. But that principality that has never been deposed in that area, right? What are we really looking at here? Because we haven't seen this type of atrocity since World War II or since Pol Pot. I mean, it's ongoing. It's all right out of Hell's Kitchen. So, circling back into the eclipse, the place to watch from a biblical perspective is the prophecies regarding the nation of Israel.
Are you tired of living in constant pain? Do you feel like you've tried every CBD product on the market with no relief? Look no further than JJ's Natural CBD Rub. When I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, this was the only product that completely took my pain away. Working with JJ has been a dream come true, and his products have completely changed my life. Don't just take my word for it. Visit JJ's website, jjcbdrub.com, and read hundreds of testimonials from people whose lives have been changed by all of JJ's amazing products. And now, as a Skiba News Nation exclusive, you can get $50 off a 3-pack special of JJ's Natural CBD Rub by texting CBD to 920-382-7720. Don't suffer in silence any longer. Take control of your pain today with JJ's Natural CBD Rub. Again, text CBD to 920-382-7720 for an exclusive discount and start feeling the relief you deserve. The links are in the description below.
In regards to the signs in the heavens, have you seen in any of your research any correlation between heavenly alignments such as eclipses or particular alignments with stars that would coincide with alien sightings or UFO activity? I know Rob's last big presentation was regarding the 1500 Nuremberg sightings, where there were many murals showing UFO activity and falling stars and all whatnot. And we know that's in the book of Revelation as well, with the concept of the stars falling from heaven. But perhaps you could speak to that topic and heavenly alignments and its correlation with UFO activity.
Yes and no. I mean, we have to be careful. This is why we watch and we don't knee jerk. It's like we were supposed to see all this stuff with the eclipse, and some people were just going absolutely bonkers. And I interviewed Mondo Gonzalez over the weekend, and our admonition to our followers would just let cool heads prevail. Just take a deep breath. More than likely, nothing's going to happen, and guess what? Nothing happened. There's one guy sent me a video. There's some really weird sounds going on, and I wrote him back. Mountain lion, because where he's pointing the camera, it's completely dark. He's in full-blown eclipse mode. So, you do that to the animals, they're going to react. Is that a mountain lion we're hearing growling? Could be. Is it a Sasquatch? Could be. Could be. Don't know. I mean, I listened to it 3 or 4 times, and it could be either or. I know what squatches sound like. But it could be a mountain lion? Absolutely. Mountain lions can make some really weird sounds.
So
I don't know
cat.
what we're looking at.
My cat makes some weird noises too. I think
there
it's
you
in
go.
it's in the feline family.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it can get weird. So, there's the Bible tells us, watch the signs. There's going to be signs in the heavens and all that. And it's important that we do that. I mean, I totally get that. At the end of World War II, when Israel was moving into their promised land, and in 1948, when Israel basically declares independence, when was Kenneth Arnold's sighting? 47. When was Roswell? 47. Shortly thereafter, Israel becomes a nation. That's right after the nukes that went off. So here's, I've got some real strong thoughts about the nukes and why these so-called entities are obsessed with the nukes. And if you want to go down that road, we can. If not, ask me another question.
Sure. We could speak on that briefly. I know just the power of nukes is interesting. I've always thought personally that if there was a Project Bluebeam event, then they would use possibly a large mushroom cloud as a projecting screen to shine up, to be able to, do some of those big projections into the heavens. And the perfect mushroom cloud maker is a big nuclear bomb. But yeah, maybe we could speak on that for a little bit and the connection between aliens being obsessed with that technology.
Well, they are obsessed with it. And here's this, again, this is conjecture on my part. So that's my caveat to your listeners. But when Jesus casts out the demons from the man of the tombs, they look at him and they say, "What have you to do with us, Son of the Most High God?" And here's the kicker. "Have you come to torment us before the time?" How do they know that 2,000 years ago, when Jesus is casting them out, how do they know that this is not their time of torment? How do they know that? They know it doesn't, with the period of time that they're manifesting, doesn't look anything like the time of the end. They can see through time further than we can. They're not all knowing, but they can see through time further than we can. How is it that when the dragon, Satan, is cast out from heaven, he falls to earth, and it says, woe to the inhabitants of earth, because the dragon, your adversary, Satan, is cast to earth, and he knows his time is short. How does he know that? How does he know his time is short? So you've got two texts separated by, a lot of time. They know, the fallen ones know, that in the protocols of the heavenly war, they will appear, they will show up when a nuclear explosion goes off somewhere. This is why when Nagasaki happened and Hiroshima happened, this is where you got this influx of UFOs. Big time. Right after that. And then you got Roswell. Why Roswell? The 509th Bombing Group is the only bombing group in 1947 with a nuclear capability. That's why they're there. That's why they're there. Think about it. And this is the last chapter in the book, which will be released this year sometime. I'm actually closing in on it, but I need more time. So you have a nuclear event. Well, first of all, the grid is back. There's a grid which is completely over planet Earth, right? It covers the Earth. We now communicate at the speed of live. The grid is here, and it's active, and it's working. You have a nuclear event that goes off anywhere on this planet, and this will create the greatest climate of fear that mankind has ever collectively experienced. We'll all be experiencing it together. The calling card of darkness is one of fear. A nuclear event will cause the greatest climate of fear that mankind has ever experienced. That's when they show up. There's a saying I coined a while back, and it's going to be on. It's going to be on the mugs. We're taking all the sayings from all these years. We go up, they come down. We go up, they show up, and making a series of mugs. Shameless plug. You have a nuclear event that goes off. Does that trigger the rapture? Possibly. So here's the scenario for you. I owe this to Mondo Gonzalez and Jeff Van Hatten, because Mondo was the one that told me about it. With the springboard for their thinking could have been my saying, we go up, they come down, we go up, they show up. Elijah the prophet, when he goes up into heaven, Elisha, his servant, sees him, watches him go up. When Jesus goes up into heaven, into the cloud, really important, right? All of his disciples are there watching him go up. And I believe Mary Magdalene and Mary's mother and who knows how many others were there. A lot more than just the 11, in my opinion. When the two witnesses, this is future obviously, who are killed and their bodies lay on the streets of Jerusalem, they are resurrected, and the whole world watches them do what? Go up into the clouds. You want to know what your great deception is? We go up, they come down. We go up, they show up. Here's the people, right? We're being raptured like this. We're being raptured like this. The whole world is watching millions of people go up into the clouds. Out of that cloud comes this. And that, my friends, men faint from fear for what's coming upon the earth. Even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. You have this thing show up out of the clouds, and it's a game changer. My two films on Fatima, Harbinger of Deception, eyewitnesses who were in that field in 1917, who saw the so-called miracle of a sun, they said, the eyewitnesses said, and that's in the handwritten documents from Father Fiera, 1917, I looked up and saw a dull silver disc that came out of the cloud. That came out of the cloud. So you've got mile-wide UFOs over the cities of the world, and our space brothers, who are nefarious entities, i.e. watcher fallen angels, our space brothers, so-called space brothers, will tell us that we took these people off-world because they weren't ready for the paradigm shift in consciousness. I'm not making this stuff up, or maybe I am. It's based on decades of research. And I think that's what will happen. And that's a game changer.
Jeremiah, what were was that all the audience submitted questions?
Yeah, that's all I got for the audience. Well, they wanted to know about the Nephilim, the 2 rows of teeth. Somebody asked me about that. I figured I'd ask you.
Well, that's just a genetic aberration that happens when you cross. It's like the red hair. Well, some females have the red hair gene. It doesn't mean if you've got red hair that you're a Nephilim. It doesn't mean if you've got double rows of teeth that you've got a Nephilim gene in you. It just means that there are certain genetic characteristics that were attributed to the Nephilim because they're mixing seed with human women.
Okay. Well, that's all I got for the submitted ones.
Yeah, I think my final question would be another thing a lot of people were talking about in regards to the eclipse was the possible sighting or arrival of Planet X, Nibiru. I wanted to ask you your opinion on that topic regarding, another celestial body.
Yeah, we did one of our films was on in Watchers with the late Richard Shaw. We covered Nibiru, and we interviewed, and I'm not going to disparage the researcher. He insisted that by a year after this interview that we were doing, that it would be seen. Well, it hasn't been seen. And, I'm not scoffing at anything, but, it's like this stuff is just promulgated and people just run with it. And it's not based on anything. It's based on Zechariah Sitchin's nonsense. And look, Dr. Mike Heiser and I were never buddies, okay? He actually wrote 2 or 3 hit pieces on me and said some really nasty things. Mike's dead, so I'm not going to disparage his name. He was a brilliant researcher. Too bad we couldn't patch things up. I'm going to spend eternity with Dr. Michael Heiser. I have no axe to grind. He was a brilliant researcher, absolutely brilliant. And, we disagreed on some things. That's okay. But we don't, as brothers in Christ, we shouldn't be engaging in hit pieces on each other. We should go to that person and one-to-one and talk it out. I'll give you an example before I give my my theory, and I will tell you that in just a second. Let me write it down so I can get back after the rabbit trail. Recently, someone at a very well-known ministry, someone said, "Why don't you ever have L.A. Marzulli on?" And they didn't really give an answer, so I pressed it and said, "Well, what's the deal? Why won't you have me on?" Well, someone heard you say something in 2018 that about bilocation that rubbed them the wrong way, and so you're just way too far out for us. So I said, well, what did they say? And I couldn't get an answer. So recently I was at a prophecy conference, and there were 2 people from this particular ministry, one a pastor and one a speaker, and I went to them and I just said, as a brother, what did I say which was so offensive that that you only, the host of the show has never read any of my books, never watched any of my films, but I'm banned from that. I'm just outright banned from it because of something someone said, right? And that's wrong.
Yep.
On so many levels. It's just wrong. And so the other guy who was with the pastor said, well, you talked about bilocation. I said, yeah, so what? So Philip didn't bilocate? When God takes him from one place and drops him to another? If that's not bilocation, I don't know what is. The pastor immediately agreed with me. So we gave him a free book, The Cosmic Chess Match. We haven't heard back. It's water under the bridge. I hold no ill will or harbor any bad feelings towards these people, but it's not the way the body of Christ should work. It just isn't. If you have something against me, you come to me directly and you tell me, and we're going to reason this thing out together. But that's not what happens. And unfortunately, that's not what happened with Mike. Mike's a great guy. I've already given him kudos. He's brilliant. His books are worth reading. He's a stand-up guy and he's really smart. He has a website called Sitchin is Wrong, www.sitchiniswrong. And what he does is he takes you into the ancient Sumerian texts, and you can discover for yourself why Sitchin is wrong. Sitchiniswrong.com. And Mike was brilliant. He could read and speak whatever Semitic languages. So we're not disparaging him in any way. I'm just using it as an example. It's like, if you got something against L.A. Marzulli, come to me directly. I'm a warm fuzzy bear. We'll sit down and we'll talk over some coffee, or we'll Zoom, or we can work it out. Paul McCartney and the Beatles, we can work it out. But unfortunately, in the body of Messiah, in the body of Christ, that's not the case. There's just, rumor, innuendo, right? And that's what people believe. See the smile on my face? He's in charge. The Lord's in charge. The Lord is my advocate. The Lord is my strength. And that's it. So I've learned. Look, I'm 73, guys. Okay, I'm grandpa to both of you guys. All right, you can just call me Gramps. And I've learned over the years of ministry that you got to let it roll off. Give it to the Lord. The Lord will make it right. If I don't see it maybe be made right, doesn't matter. He will make it right, because that's his job. That's what he does. He brings goodness out of adversary. That's what he does. And that's what I'm going with. So we're down to the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, that was well put. I think it's people looking at other people's interests and kind of disparaging against what they're pursuing, as they're all called in different ways to pursue after that spirit of truth, right? And it's the elbow hating on the armpit, so to speak, and in terms of the body of Christ analogy, right? So I think that's a very important concept, because there's a lot of men who have wisdom in one area, but they're unfamiliar of other areas. And so how do we bring it all together to just better equip the next generation without rubbing everybody the wrong way and saying, oh, you're stealing sheep, or you're deceiving people with a distraction? And I think that's a very important, and it really shows the mark of somebody who's walking in maturity, to be able to listen to somebody they disagree with and still, take and learn from them,
And I would agree. I mean, that's what we're, iron sharpens iron. I mean, I don't agree with everything that, one of my closest friends, Mondo Gonzalez, and I, we go at it sometimes, but we love each other. And I mean that in the agape sense. We're brothers in Christ. We've been to Israel together. We've been to Peru together. It's like we've been to certain sites in the Americas together. We've done archaeological digs together. And yet we disagree on some things, but we get together, and the moment I see him, I start laughing. Same thing with Russ Dinstar. Russ was a battle buddy. Russ was post-trib, I'm pre-trib. We never let that stand in our way. We knew we didn't agree on that, but Russ would walk in the room and I would just start laughing. And I've got pictures of it. I would be beaming from ear to ear. And from across the room, he would go, homie, like that. And I would go back to him, homie. And, he was a battle buddy. We appeared at 90 conferences together, 90, before he passed away. So, and that's, they will know each other by the love you have for each other, not the fact that I'm the smartest guy in the room, and and I don't like what you're saying, so you're wrong, I'm right. It's just we just got to take a deep breath and Paul says it, I think, best. Though I speak with the tongues of angels but not have love in my heart, what am I? A clanging gong. Though I know all mysteries and have all knowledge, but do not have love in my heart, what am I? Who cares? Who cares? I mean, it all comes down. Everything boils down to the love that we show to each other and the love that we show to the loved ones around us. That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. And where can people find your stuff? That way,
Yeah, lamarzulli.com, lamarzulli.com, lamarzulli.net. Our new website, Roswell Revisited, is almost up and running. And that's a great site. I want to thank Chauncey Green for doing that. It's just fantastic. But, we've got, you can go to our streaming site, streaming.lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.com, lamarzulli.com takes you to the main site. And I would hope that some of your listeners would probe our DVDs and our books. There's 13 books in our collection. And then we publish 2 from other authors, Karen Wilkerson, Vicki Joy Anderson. And then, of course, we have 30 films. So a lot of stuff. Thanks for having me on, guys. God bless you both.
Thanks for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you for coming on.
See you later.
Going out with a boom.
Oh, yeah. Gotta love that. All right, guys. Thanks for having me on. God
Talk
bless.
to you soon. Later.
Yep, you got it.
If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.